Her children refused to attend her wedding, her neighbors called it shameful, and some people even said, at 60, this isn't love, this is desperation. But Margaret Ellis didn't cancel the wedding. She walked down the aisle, with grey hair, trembling hands, and a heart that had already been broken once, because what people didn't know was, this wasn't just a wedding, this was her second chance at life, and by the end of her story, you might question everything you believe about love, age, and starting over. Margaret Ellis wasn't always alone for 34 years. She was a wife, a woman who believed in commitment, in loyalty, in forever. She married young, back when love felt simple, and promises felt permanent. Her husband, Robert Ellis, was ambitious, and Margaret, she became his support system. She gave up her own dreams, so he could chase his. When he worked late, she waited when he struggled. She stood beside him when he succeeded. She stayed in the background. She wasn't just his wife, she was his foundation. They built a home together, raised children, shared birthdays, holidays, quiet evenings. From the outside, it looked perfect, but slowly, something began to change. It didn't happen overnight. There was no big fight, no dramatic moment, just distance. Conversations became shorter, silences became longer, and the man she once knew started to feel like a stranger. Margaret noticed it, but she ignored it, because after 30 years, you don't expect things to fall apart. You convince yourself it's just a phase, but it wasn't. One evening, after dinner, Robert sat across from her, calm, distant, cold, and then he said the words, I want to live for myself now. No anger, no emotion, just a decision, already made. And in that moment, Margaret realized something terrifying. She had given her entire life to someone who was ready to walk away from it. The divorce was quiet, no drama, no shouting, just signatures and silence. The children tried to stay neutral, but they moved on with their own lives. And Margaret, she stayed behind in a house that suddenly felt too big, too empty, too quiet. Mornings became meaningless. Nights became unbearable. She stopped cooking proper meals, stopped answering calls, stopped caring about things she once loved. She wasn't just alone. She felt invisible, and the world didn't help. People talked. At her age, what did she expect? At least she had a long marriage, as if her pain had an expiration date, as if loneliness was easier at 60. But the hardest part wasn't the divorce. It was the realization that she didn't know who she was without him. One morning, Margaret stood in front of the mirror. It didn't happen all at once. There was no sudden transformation, just small steps. She started going outside again, took walks, read books, joined a small community book club. At first, she barely spoke, but she listened, and slowly, she began to feel human again. And then, one evening, someone sat next to her, not too close, not too far, and said, Is this seat taken? His name was Daniel Carter. She looked at herself, really looked. The grey hair, the tired eyes, the woman staring back at her, felt like a stranger, and for a moment, she broke. Tears fell, silently, for the years she lost, for the love that failed, for the life she never lived for herself. But then, something unexpected happened. She didn't look away, she didn't hide, she whispered something. I'm still here, and that moment changed everything. Daniel wasn't trying to impress her, he wasn't trying to fix her, he just talked to her, listened to her, respected her silence, and valued her words. For the first time in years, Margaret didn't feel judged, she felt understood. Their conversations grew longer, their laughter more natural, and her heart slowly began to open again. She was scared of getting hurt, of being judged, of starting over. But Daniel never rushed her. He just stayed, and sometimes that's all love really is. Asterisk asterisk 1 year later, Daniel asked her, "Will you marry me?" She didn't answer right away, because this wasn't just a question. It was a risk, a choice between fear and courage, and this time, she chose courage at 60 years old. Margaret said yes, asterisk asterisk when people found out. They were shocked. This is inappropriate. What will people say? Why no? Even her own children struggled to accept it. Some didn't attend the wedding. Some distanced themselves. But Margaret had made her decision for the first time in her life. She wasn't asking for permission. Asterisk asterisk on her wedding day. She walked slowly, not because she was weak, but because she understood the weight of that moment. This wasn't just love. This was freedom. Freedom from fear, from judgment, from a life she no longer wanted. And as she stood there, holding Daniel's hand, she wasn't thinking about the past. She wasn't worried about the future. She was simply living. Oh, tell me honestly, if life gave you a second chance at 60, would you take it? Or let fear decide your story?